Hello and welcome to Edbet Leadership. I was discussing with a friend recently and began reflecting afterwards. And so let me start with a question most leaders don't ask out loud. What if the reason the work of leadership already feels heavier in 2026 is not because you're failing, but because the old ways of leading no longer work? You see, many leaders entered this year with experience, competence, and good intentions. But yet, something feels kind of off. Now, decisions don't land the way that they used to. Certain thing no longer reassures people. And you see, authority doesn't carry the same weight. And the harder most people will try to stabilize things, the more fragile it seems to become. Now, that's not weakness. That's an adaptive moment. You see, we are leading in a season where the problems in front of us can't be solved by expertise alone. And I keep saying this. They require shifts in values, in behaviors, and identity. And when leaders or authority figures respond to adaptive challenges with old habits, leadership doesn't collapse dramatically, it erodes quietly. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. Most leadership breakdowns in 2026 won't come from seemingly bad people or with poor intentions. They will come from falling into predictable traps, especially under pressure. Traps that look like strength, sound like confidence, and also feel like leadership until they quietly undermine trust, learning, and growth. So, today, in this episode, I want to talk you through 10 adaptive leadership traps to avoid in 2026. Are you ready? Now, this is not to shame you or to overwhelm you, but to help you notice where leadership is quietly slipping into autopilot. Because the greatest risk that you will face this year is not making the wrong decision, it's avoiding the deeper work the moment is demanding. So, as you listen, don't rush to agreement or defense. Let these traps act as mirrors. And don't ask yourself, do I do this? Rather, ask yourself, where does this show up in me when the pressure is high? So let's begin. Trap number one, confusing certainty with leadership. One of the most seductive traps in the practice of leadership is the belief that certainty equals competence. So in uncertain times, people crave leaders who sound seemingly sure. So leaders rush to clarity, not because it's true, but because it's comforting. Now, here what makes this trap so dangerous. Certainty feels like leadership because it calms anxiety in the moment. But clarity that arrives too early often silences the very voices that could save you later. So when authority figures or leaders rush to sound sure, they unknowingly teach people to stop thinking. And over time, certainty replaces curiosity and learning quietly dies. But adaptive leadership requires something seemingly harder, the courage to say we don't fully know yet. So in 2026, understand that premature certainty will shut down learning. It will tell people to wait for direction instead of engaging reality. So be mindful. Leadership is not about knowing first, it's about staying present the longest. Trap number two, treating resistance as stubbornness instead of loss. Now, resistance is one of the most misread signals in leadership. We label people as negative, difficult, or change averse. But adaptive leadership teaches us that people don't resist change, they resist loss. Now, what are we talking about here? Loss of status, competence, routines, identity. Fill the gaps. Every time resistance shows up, there is almost always grief hiding beneath it. Grief for competence that once mattered, grief for routines that provided safety, grief for identities that once made sense. So when leaders learn to listen for grief instead of fighting resistance, transformation becomes possible. So instead of asking, why are they resisting? Ask the question, what are they afraid of losing? Name the loss, and resistance will soften. Trap number three, absorbing everyone's anxiety. Many leaders believe their role is to protect people from distress, so they carry everyone's fear, uncertainty, and frustration alone. But this is not leadership, it's emotional overload. Many leaders confuse strength with emotional self sacrifice. They believe leadership means being the shock absorber for everyone else's fear. But when leaders carry what belongs to the system never matures. Anxiety doesn't disappear, it just relocates. And it often shows up later as burnout, resentment, or collapse. In 2026, leaders who absorb all the anxiety burn out quickly. Teams remain dependent, and reality still arrives. Regulate distress, don't eliminate it. People can tolerate bad news better than hidden truth. Trap number 4, hiding behind authority. Titles no longer guarantee trust. Position no longer guarantees influence. Yet many leaders still default to authority when pressure rises. Now, this is the decision. This is non-negotiable. Authority can silence disagreement, but it cannot generate commitment. In fact, the more leaders lean on position alone, the quieter resistance becomes. People stop arguing, but they stop caring. Silence is not alignment, and compliance is not leadership success. So in 2026, authority without trust will create compliance, not commitment. Authority gives you the permission to lead. It does not replace the work of leadership. Trap number 5, applying technical fixes to adaptive problems. Now, this trap is everywhere, and I see it everywhere. We respond to cultural problems with policies, human problems with systems, emotional problems with matrix. Technical solutions feel safe because they are controllable. Adaptive problems are uncomfortable because they demand inner change, not external fixes. They ask people to rethink values, habits, and loyalties. And because that work is emotionally demanding, leaders often avoid it. So we add systems, policies, and tools, hoping structure will do the work. All right? But no system can substitute for honest human change. So ask this question repeatedly in 2026. Is this a skills problem or a values problem? Trap number 6, ignoring identity work. Adaptive change always disrupts identity. Who am I if what I was good at no longer matters? Who am I if my role shifts? And who am I if I can't lead the way I used to? Change threatens more than roles. It threatens self-worth. When leaders overlook identity, they misread hesitation as incompetence. But what's really happening is an internal reckoning. People are asking whether there is still a place for them in the future being created. And leadership that ignores this question creates quiet disengagement. Help people grieve who they were so they can become who they must be. Trap number 7, over-controlling in the face of ambiguity. You see, when authority figures feel uncertain, control increases. More reports, more oversight, more micromanagement. But control is often fear wearing a leadership mask. Control feels productive, but it is often reactive. It's what leaders reach for when uncertainty feels unbearable. But the tighter the grip, the faster trust erodes. And once trust disappears, no amount of oversight can restore stability. Control may produce order, but it never produces commitment. Stability comes from trust, not control. And trap number 8 you need to watch, silencing the margins. Adaptive insight rarely comes from the center, it comes from the edges. Frontline staff, junior voices, dissenters. Now these voices are often inconvenient. The margins see what the center cannot afford to notice yet. They've experienced consequences before leaders feel urgency. But because their voices disrupt, they are often ignored. And when early warnings are dismissed, reality finds louder ways to speak. Protect voices that surface uncomfortable truths early. And my trap number 9, playing the hero. The hero leader rescues, fixes, and decides. Over time, this creates dependence and exhaustion. The hero leader feels indispensable, but pays a hidden cost. Others stop taking initiative because the leader always intervenes. Growth slows, dependence grows, and resentment quietly builds. What looks like generosity is often control in disguise. And over time, everyone loses, including the leader, the authority figure. Leadership is not being the solution. It's helping others take responsibility. And my final trap, number 10, prioritizing performance over learning. Performance looks impressive until conditions change. Learning endures. Performance rewards the past. Learning prepares for the future. Yet many organizations cling to metrics that no longer fit reality. Mistakes are hidden instead of examined. Questions are discouraged in favor of speed. And slowly, organizations become efficient at repeating failure. In 2026, organizations that hide failure will repeat it. Reward reflection as much as results. And these are my closing reflections. As we move deeper into 2026, the real leadership question is not how do I stay in control? It is how do I stay present without collapsing or controlling? Adaptive leadership does not promise comfort necessarily. It promises honesty, courage, and growth. Thank you for listening. And in 2026, apply adaptive leadership and lead well. See you later.